Привет-привет! Всем привет! Хай, Хани! Привет, Суп! Привет, Николай! Так, сегодня у нас будет Stanley Parable. Правда, не первая часть, а который вышел ремастер Deluxe Edition. Stanley обычный Parable я когда-то проходил давно-давно, поэтому подумал, почему бы не проходить сразу Deluxe Edition, который, как я знаю, отличается. В связи с этим тут не будет русской озвучки, потому что я проверял. С русской озвучкой, как ты знаешь, все новые диалоги озвучивались через машину, через нейронку. Они там звучат ужасно, поэтому я решил, лучше послушаем английскую речь, так и быть уже. Мне причем нравится голос диктора, который был изначально Oh my god, Ultra Deluxe, yes! Послушаем диктора, который изначально был в английском. Мне понравился он там все равно. В принципе, я зашел в игру. И не понимаю, зачем они требуют время, правда. Я когда заходил, они опять требуют времени. Сейчас опять. Так, может, микрофон ближе подвину, чтобы вот так. Все. О. Без озвучки. Ну ничего. Так, что? Английский диктор мне очень нравится. У него такой голос, такой глубокий, такой низкий, такой Стэнли. Так, сейчас 17:00 почти. Нам нужно PM, то есть это 5. Погодите-ка. Пока не начали, могу я кое-что сказать. Спасибо, что выставили время оба раза, что запускали игру. Многие относятся к этому как-то несерьезно. Ставили часы на 12 и торопятся дальше. А вы потратили время, чтобы выставить часы. И я это ценю. Это говорит мне о том, что вы играете внимательно, что для вас важны детали. А ведь я даже не знаю, правильно ли вы время выставили. Знаете что, давайте договоримся. Я вам так доверяю, что при следующем запуске игры просто выставите на это экране свое любимое время. Выбирайте любое время, даже если оно неправильно. Вы заслужили. А теперь можем вернуться к игре. Блин, прикольно. Так сразу. Хотите. Мне нравится тут очень этот с менюшкой, который окно в окне. Так. Ну тогда начинаем. Я, в принципе, заранее вроде проверил. Максимум, чтобы быть, может быть, играть тиховато. Это история человека по имени Стэнли. 427. Было простой. Что мы должны делать? Нажимал кнопки. Так мы сейчас то же самое делаем, правда мы это не работаем. Что? А что так удобно? Код за год. Создан, да, кто угодно, вы понимаете, за это время был счастлив, да. Понимаете, за это время, пока ты работаешь, что-то очень странное. Что? Ноль инструкций. Совсем один.
Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Как вообще вам слышно игру? Вроде бы должно быть нормально. Я могу чуть погромче сделать, вот чуть-чуть вот так. И давайте я уменьшу чувствительность. Все-таки для меня сейчас это оказалось сильно. Двоечка. Ну, сойдет много еще, но окей. Так, ну давайте сначала будем слушаться полностью. Так и не нашел. Я помню, что когда-то давно, короче, Короче, тут можно провалиться. Я не помню, это из спидранов, либо это просто для концовок. О, ладно, я выключил.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
Да, ладно, все, мы идем. А двери всегда там были так открыты? Ну. Чё все стали включенными компы? Ну. Я не помню, чтоб так было. Угу. Нет, я помню, что в прошлый раз было совсем другое. Левую? Точно? Так и быть, пойдем. Я не помню, что будет, если мы будем просто потому, что нам говорят.
Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Так, а почему надписи не работают? Я же хотел, чтобы надписи были. Специальные настройки. Метки. Ну вот. Определенных надписей. А где? Неужели ни одна надпись не переведена? Нет. Подсобка. А это переведена. Ремастер всего немного. Ну да. Так. Интересно, а тут можно тоже вывалиться? Это прям наверх. О. Туалет начальника. Быть богатым — это преступление. Значит, не богатым. Ну, не важно. Так. Что тут?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark
Где все
secret was
люди?
being held from
Почему я
him?
не могу взять ни одну
What he
бутылку
could not
вина?
have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret pin number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Ну ладно, это я все еще помню. Тут пока ничего такого. Догрузка? Не, мы сходим в кладовую, пока пройдем, по как говорят. Стэнли почувствовал себя как-то странно. Задавайте вопросом. Что? Где мы работаем? Зачем ему наша работа? Мне нравится левой кнопкой мыши нажимать, хотя такой звук клавиш. Ладно. Но он прошел, а кнопку он не нажимал. Ему кнопку никто не говорил нажимать, он будет стоять просто. Кнопка же. Про кнопку-то ему никто не говорил. Документы перед... Пугало тебя. Опять могу вывалиться. Нет! Тихо. Ладно.
What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find
Черт, мне сказали нажать. Не нажимайте, я нажал. Что тут? Это компьютеры? Нет, это просто экраны. Привет, Миф. Что? Кто уволен? Я видел, я смотрю на ту камеру, где я потерял ее. Где? А в какой мы были? 400... какой-то... Вот, вон она наша. Вон она, я прям на нее смотрю. Это в центре, это наша. По-любому наша, 427-я. CCTV, ну ладно. В смысле, она сказала привет. Не игнорирую в чате. Что делать?
Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
Что? Это невозможно! Я протестую.
No. He refused to believe.
Нельзя с этим мириться. Мы должны. Мы должны противостоять этому.
Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation.
Сердце комплекс.
Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content.
Грусти.
Eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded
Что?
from this very place.
А людям не надоело за каждыми 500 сотрудниками наблюдать?
Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once
где их
and
отключить?
for all.
Он так говорит. Вот это питание комплекса. Ну, видимо, это. Mind controls. Комплекс на паузе. Ждем ввода. Ждите. Никто не будет. Все будут свободными. Все, концовка. Ну, судя по тому, что я... Нет, могу все еще управлять собой. Все кончено? Да. Да! Победа! Победа!
Unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away.
Освободите меня!
Even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved.
Сколько? Кого волнуют коллеги, когда ты сам свободен?
What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber,
Не важно ничего.
none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go.
Мы свободны. Прощайте. Прощайте, компания. Я не забуду все те бессонные ночи, которые я провел. Красота. Все остальное было неважно. Согласен, согласен. Наружу? Ну так выйдите! Дайте выйти! Прохладное касание ветра. Свободу. Все, теперь мы будем пасти овечек на горе. Они такие... Так блеять. Мы будем овечек пасти. Делать свой шашлычок. Все? Интересно. Ну скорее всего ничего не будет, если каждый раз. Что? Это вся свобода? Знаем чуть-чуть. Так, ладно, так, второе. Мы выйдем через. Ну, это типа. Это еще с первой части осталось. Этот стул. Поэтому куда мы? Правильно, уже нарушаем.
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map
Да, да.
until he heard this narration and realized it
Черт!
was part of the
Меня
game's
обдурили.
design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the
Черт!
nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun
Да,
and
да.
unique place
Только
to
выпустите.
be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this game?
Да,
yet?
да, да, давай дальше.
Ah, then in that case we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had
Ответила,
told
что
me
с
that
тебе
you wanted this
довольна.
to stop? Do you
Думаю,
think it
что-то
would have
сильно бы
been particularly
изменилось.
different?
Да, меня бы
Would I have taken
высвободили
the
бы.
same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought
Не,
of
не.
it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the
Я бы
first
сидел
place.
бы в этой коробке долго.
Now, think about it. Will it be worth it for you to restart and then come
Чёрт,
back
они меня
here just to
байтят.
do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time.
Сливаюсь
What
с
if the
белым
other
фоном, но
option is
вроде
even
это...
longer?
Я
How
вижу, что
long will
чату
you spend in
плохо.
total just to have heard all the narration? Oh, and this is rich. Perhaps you've just played the other option, and now you've come to see what happens in this one.
Да, чату
So,
плохо.
what do you think?
Давайте я вас
Which
помещу
choice
в
was the
другое
better
место.
one? Imagine if you
Но
had
вместе с
selected
этим увеличу.
continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens when you pick the other option.
Да всё!
Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones.
Всё!
Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not.
Выпустите!
I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky.
Какой же он долго.
I've built up the other options so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever.
Да,
And
да,
ever.
да, замолкни, пожалуйста. Мы остаемся здесь. Никуда мы не выходим. Он же еще раз заговорит, да? Он же меня не бросит. Надеюсь. Кейтс. Слышите эхо? Блин, прикольно. Нет, он забатит меня. Он хочет, чтобы я нажал кнопку «да». Он хочет. Поэтому я нажму. А? Ничего не изменилось. Что? Мне перезапускать надо? Что, начать игру заново, типа? Ну ладно. А если еще
All of
раз?
his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Оп, оп, оп,
Stanley
оп, оп,
decided to
оп,
go to the meeting
оп.
room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. At first, Stanley assumed he'd
Да не
broken the
думал, я
map
уже знаю.
until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's
Сказали,
design
что это
all
все
along.
продумано.
He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination
Я
of
правильно
structural
перезапускаю
narrative
игру?
tropes.
Я не
So,
помню.
now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to
Все,
be?
все, все, это мы
Why
уже
don't we
говорили.
take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
Да.
Well, I don't know how to say this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game
Да.
any old time you want. Like right now.
Не, не.
You could have done it just then.
Это не одно движение
Now would also
пальца.
be an appropriate time to quit. Any of these points and so many, many more, all of them are appropriate. I'm enjoying what seems to be an internal conflict going on.
Что же
where
будет?
you are literally unable to act on your
Перепустить
own
желание
desires to
перезапустить игру.
restart the game.
Действительно,
So,
действительно.
just to push the envelope, I'm going to try and make this as miserable as possible and see how long you can maintain.
Что-то вы... Что он хочет?
There once was a man,
Ах.
Stanley, who
Ничего,
people
послушаем,
considered
послушаем.
so manly. But the truth must be told, he was not very old and was quite particular.
Сам ты
about
псих,
gaming.
я не псих, пошел нахуй.
What Stanley liked most was buttons.
Что?
Like some
Он
kind of
обзывает, называет нас пробками.
He did it all day in a meaningful way, but his brain had long ceased to function. Which is why he is in this parable and lives an existence quite terrible.
Черт, хочется теперь
And if
запустить.
you are not strong and keep playing along, you too will become quite unbearable. You too will become quite
Трагичен.
unbearable.
Я выдержал. Что дальше? Может, мне понравилось. Что ты скажешь на это? Ты не сможешь вечно говорить. Меня больше хватит терпения, чем у тебя. У тебя нет ни капли. Ну, что ты будешь делать? Что? Они просто поставят вечно играть музыку на повторе. Думаете, что я сдадусь? Я не сдамся! Я целенаправленный. Я буду смотреть на эти два окна. Тяп-тяп-тяп-тяп-тяп-тяп-тяп-тяп-тяп. Он же закончится когда-нибудь? Тут еще, кстати, кнопки остались. Вот, видите, меня трясет? Это я по кнопкам хожу, которые на стене были. Да, нет. Ах. Ладно, уговорил. Иди в жопу. У меня терпение не настолько. Ну, возможно, там ничего бы не было, я бы ждал бы впустую.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Пошел в пень. Выключим все компы. И waiting input. Не могу ввести. Может, какая-то дверь
Stanley went around
открывается?
touching every little thing in the
Уже
office,
нет.
but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way. When Stanley
Так, давайте
came to a
пойдем
set of two
пока
open
по
doors, he
истории.
entered the door on his left.
Я пытаемся тут что-то поломать. Оп, меня не интересует даже это. Оп, 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 оп.
Feeling a wave of
Пошел
disbelief,
отсюда. Я знаю, что в
Stanley
подсобке это
decided
тоже
to
есть
go
стандартный.
out. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here.
Ой, тут как
So
будто
he
что-то
turned around
изменили.
and got back on track.
Я не буду уходить с кладовой.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow. Just
Мне нравится
an
эта
empty
подсобка.
broom
Гляньте, как
closet.
тут уютно.
No reason to still be
Что тут
here.
есть? Шматок, веревки, надеюсь, может быть, кабеля. Изолента, то есть
It was
скотч.
baffling that Stanley was still just sitting
Ну,
in the broom
изолента.
closet. He wasn't
Так,
even doing
гаечный
anything.
ключ.
At least if
Еще
there was something
скотч,
to interact
ну,
with,
изолента.
he'd be justified in some
Ключ.
way. As it is,
А,
he's literally just
я не
standing
помню,
there
как называется
doing
эта
sweet
штука.
FA.
Чё это? А, это рукоятка, видимо, для каких-то пульверизаторов,
Are you
либо еще
really
что-либо.
still in the broom closet? Standing around
Еще один
doing nothing?
ключ.
Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused.
Я тоже ничего не понимаю. Дай посмотреть, что выше. Что тут еще есть?
You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out.
Да, да.
It didn't even occur to me because literally this closet
В смысле не важна?
absolutely no
В смысле не
significance to the
важна?
story
Тут
whatsoever.
ничего
I never
нет.
would have thought to mention it.
Ну, подумаешь. Так, пока вот тут сидим в
Maybe
подсобке.
to you this is somehow its
Да,
own
есть, есть.
branching path.
Yes, yes.
Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends, you'll say, "Oh,
А вы дошли до
did you
концовки
get the
подсобки?
broom closet
Концовка
ending?
подсобки,
The broom
моя
closet ending
любимая.
was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning.
Чё, сам псих. Короче. А, суп же это, не знаете.
Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid.
Чё?
He probably only got the job because of a family
Сам
connection.
тупой
That's how
и
stupid he
некрасивый.
is.
Стэнли
That or with
красавчик.
drug money. Also,
За
Stanley is
взятку!
addicted to drugs and hookers.
Так вот. А, суп же не знает. Да еще кто это сейчас смотрит, не знает. Yes. Значит, нажимаю клавишу. Потому что тут ничего нет. Но как тут ходит, отключил твою центральную нервную систему. Сейчас. Я в наушниках, чел, в наушниках. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. А представьте, реально бы кто умер в этот момент. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming. So that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost. Да, не пропадут они даром. When you've done that, just step out into the hallway. Так вот, я же участвую в турнире. Да что сейчас будет? И ты в это не было в момент? Больше не было ДМФ, не было. Не надо за меня играть, я сам постою. И, в общем, недавно выяснилось, день или два назад выяснилось, что у нас начинается турнир основной этап через 2 февраля. И я не знаю, что будет со стримами с этого момента. Вообще сейчас после стрима идут тренировки. Ну, короче, тренировки сейчас начнутся. Почти ежедневные, когда даже каникулы еще не начались. И по итогу фиг знает, как будет со стримами. Ну, по идее, я буду успевать на стримы делать. То есть для вас это особо ничего не поменяется. Просто я хотел же вести обратно просмотр чего-нибудь вечером. Но по итогу этого не будет. И фиг знает, когда закончится. Скорее всего, уже просмотр вечером больше не будет. До лета. Ну, если летом еще я буду смотреть что-нибудь. Так что, не знаю. А как долго вообще можно стоять? Давайте с вами пока поговорим в чате. Расскажите, как у вас дела, как что, как эти дни, как прошли.
Second player. You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire
Сильно инвалиды сам такой, осуждаю тебя.
A fish, fungus.
Гривуе.
You can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
А вот туда-сюда ходить. В смысле ничего не понимаешь? В учебе? В учебе нормально, надо ничего не понимать. Нет, я не могу бросить подсобку. Я уже с ней тут сижу в друзьях. Ну ладно, ладно.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Какая, вниз или наверх он сказал? Я так и не услышал.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk?
А чё все повторяется?
Because he believed everyone had vanished. His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my coworkers blinking
Вроде бы отличается. Капец машина. Как отсюда вообще выезжать на машине? Они думали об этом. А, вот. Выезд.
Why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
Неправда.
Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty
Не, это разные.
Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all
Да,
too
это
strange,
все
this
странно.
can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for
Подобрать
it.
слов.
I'm dreaming!
Я сплю!
He yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't
А за что его
crazy after
уволят?
all.
Никого же нету.
He thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Ой,
Then he imagined himself soaring through space
а
on a
можно не
magical
надо меня
starfield,
поднимать в
and
воздух? Я
it too
против
appeared.
такого.
It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid?
Да легко.
And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything
Да это
that
не
I'm
в
doing and
голове,
feeling?
это сам шиц
Now the
такой.
voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange.
Да
I'm
выпустите меня
dreaming
уже.
about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts.
Что?
And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be?
Так я ж
Was
летал.
Stanley simply deceiving himself? Believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's
Бабушка,
ever been in
что?
his life.
Бабушка наблюдала, как
Now,
ты играла
hearing
в
the voice
Стэнли.
speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt,
Это было
that this was, in
сном,
fact, a dream.
100%. Это
Did the
100%
voice
сон.
not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago?
Да, да.
How else would the voice explain all that?
Объясняй,
This
объясняй.
voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control. That
Yes.
this was a dream. So he closed his eyes
Привет.
gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up.
Нет, так не работает.
I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing
В
the
смысле, а
buttons.
как же кушать?
Please. It's all I
Кушать
want.
это святое.
I want my apartment and my wife.
У него жена
and my
есть.
job.
У него жена
All I
есть.
want is my life exactly the way it's always been.
Познакомьте меня с
My
женой
life
Стэнли.
is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine.
I am okay.
Я просто промахнулся, ладно, я понял, почему я не шел.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss.
Я
I have an office. I
настоящий!
am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must
Настоящий!
be real. Hear my voice.
Кто
Who am
я?
I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman. named
Мариэля?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She rose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk.
Чё?
Though she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man.
Жена
He was
фальшивая.
obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better.
Даже помог.
Then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for
Встреча.
that day. The
Да
very
всё, всё.
important people
Я понял,
whose
что я
impressions of
псих
her would
больной.
affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her
Вся
life.
оставшаяся
She
жизнь.
had no time for this, so it was only a
А вызвать
moment that
скорую
she stood
нет?
there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
А вызвать скорую! Стэнли умирает! Ну и сам решайте. Я понял. Не поможем больше девушке. Опа. Так
The meeting
было.
room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on, he would never be alone ever again.
как-то много, нет? Бумаги здесь.
Oh, new content?
Yes.
What does that mean, new content?
Мне самому интересно, что за new content. Куда? Куда? Извините, я просто не мог пройти мимо этой интересной двери.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers.
Ага.
After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022.
А что различие?
Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers.
Ха-ха,
The
консольщики.
Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley
Больше!
Parable, delighting audiences the
Больше
world over.
значит лучше!
Please step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await.
Я хочу.
The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Я не хочу двигаться. Я же могу не выходить? Черт, тут так сложно теперь будет. Захочу где-то стоять, что-то не делать. Ну ладно.
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet.
Но лифт
I'm
отличается
sure it's
от того.
just the beginning of a
Но это все
mesmerizing
еще на
adventure.
сорсе. Это, видимо, какой-то сорс. Тут кнопка есть?
Is it broken? What's going on here?
Yes, yes.
Should we be moving somewhere or...
Куда
Oh,
нам?
here we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on.
Поехали, поехали, начинаем.
Be more ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious.
Да.
It's as if Oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
Все.
All right. All right.
Прыжковый круг.
The jump circle.
Я могу прыгать? Прыгать! Только как же он активно прыгает? Это не прыжок этого сорсовский. Какой-то их отдельный, точнее, собственно написали. Нельзя распрыжку сделать.
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
А как же прыгать?
Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping.
Да.
Is this what passes
Это как
for
новый
exciting new
DLS.
content?
И это все стоит еще в разы дороже.
Then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's
Да,
20
давай.
hours of new content right there.
Нет, не надо.
I could counter 30 trillion. You could put that
Тоже
on
не
the
надо,
box. The
пожалуйста.
Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000
И
hours
кажд-
of new content. And oh wait.
О,
More. Very good.
еще.
Yes. I knew there had to be something else.
Очевидно,
Let's
что-то
see
еще
it.
будет.
I'm ready for whatever it is.
Спасибо, что...
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You
Вы
see,
издеваетесь?
This is what happens when greedy
Вот,
video
вот
game
и я о том
developers
же.
with no respect for their
Жадные
families
разработчики
rush a
хотят
cheap
денег.
expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't
Да.
get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it.
Я
In
с ним
fact, I'm
полностью
looking right
согласен.
now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed
Не
off on
трогай.
this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and
Ой-ой-ой.
hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills.
Без
no
рюшечек.
gifts. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
А, меня насильно перезапустили. А я не хотел. А? А? Ну, так должен выглядеть офис. Ребята, мы играем в Stanley Parable, нормально?
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
Давай, иду. Давай. Что там? Что там? Рассказывай. Черт.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new
Да.
ultra deluxe content turned out to
Помню,
be?
было
It got
такое.
me
Стали
thinking about the
прыгать.
past
И то
and how
36
much
раз, и
better the
все.
Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't
Это
find
Dark
it.
Souls Deluxe
Just our
Edition.
little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my
Это
life
что,
whenever
Dark
I want.
Souls?
Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
The Memory Zone. Я все еще пытаюсь где-то повыбраться. Может, я смогу где-то выбраться здесь.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a
Не
cheap
забывайте.
re-release? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game
Когда
originally
она
launched?
вышла?
Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Independent Game Festival. Stanley. British Academy. Там заклеили. The Last of... Там написано The Last of Us. Ну ничего, да, я согласен, это на Stanley Parable. Тот самый ремейк. Прогулка в прошлое. Улыбайтесь, все уже случилось. The Stanley Parable Demonstration. А, я вспомнил демо, или не помню. Go, so don't play for 5 years. Да ничего было, я запомнил, было только это зачем. Именно это British Academy Awards, The Stanley Parable Game Innovation. Дебют гейм. Сегодня выходит новая игра. Авторы снизили планку. Стори. Stanley Parable ставит перед выбором. Смерть. И love the memory. Нет, маленький Стэнли. Маленький Стэнли, нет. Ладно. А я могу посидеть? Я хочу сесть.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of
10 из
10
10.
from Destructoid.com.
Давай, читай.
James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote,
Цитируй.
"Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be
Что?
every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley?
Все игры в
Every
мире.
game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley
Да выпусти
Parable
меня.
was. It was literally every game ever created.
Скайрим,
It was Skyrim,
Persona.
it was all of them. And
Серьезно,
now
здесь
it's
упоминали?
nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't
Подождите.
even the Stanley Parable anymore.
Я не вижу здесь игр так. Какой так, describe one part of this about design the illusion of choice. Ну ладно, я не видел там про Skyrim ничего. Скриншотики. Во, вот это обычная менюшка. The original remake. Отдел ремонта зона памяти. Персона года. Это на сурсе сделано. Блин, прикольно.
Here's another moving passage, this time from
Вы опять.
GameSpot.com. The
Ну
Stanley
давай.
Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need
Ну да,
anything
они на
else. It
Source
didn't
сделали.
need new content.
SDK.
It just needed to be left
Ну, на
alone
Source это понятно,
to
что он
spend
сделан
the
на
rest of
Source.
time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Серьезно. А я не могу туда попасть. I have some problem. Рассказчик. У нас есть одна проблема.
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back.
Да выпустите меня!
Over again.
А, вон там... А, это кнопки. А как мне туда попасть? The number is 29. Мне не дают пройти туда. Опа.
Hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
Half-Life?
Oh no. Oh God, no.
Все, готовьтесь к спидрану.
From Steam, the online video game distributor. I
Sounds so
haven't looked at
Steam.
these in years. I can't even imagine what's
Steam
been collecting
review.
down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well.
Да. Знаю, какие Steam-ревьюшики бывают. Давайте посмотрим, что их за дело. Ну, тут если положительное. Что?
The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny.
Funny?
His humor and dialogue proving to be more
Веселят?
irritating than entertaining. Unfunny.
Unfunny?
Funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable.
Ужас.
It's already such a densely layered web of
Конечно.
profound philosophical insights
Это глубокая
that I can't
игра.
even imagine why I'd
Заставляет
have the
задуматься о жизни. О принятии выбора. Черт, мы тут не посмотрим. Я думаю, еще какие-нибудь будет. Блин, вообще прикольно. Новый контент. О, еще следующее. Давайте, давайте. Ну, 3 часа проведем, тут побольше. Текст любит нелинейная игры, такая назидательная, быстро надоест. Проповедника. Да, да, да.
This is actually quite shocking for me. I always, well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse.
А как они с собой общаются? Какие диалоги? Это монолог.
How much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it, well, I always thought it did.
Казалось.
Maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down.
Если, блин, локация напоминает с этого, из Half-Life дополнение, которое отдельно идет на острове. Что-то типа там подобное вроде про остров было или еще что-то. Чем-то я тут хожу все время, это напоминает мне.
What's this one got to
О,
say?
9 часов с экрана 10, то явно уже
You
побольше.
constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button.
Skip!
A skip button?
Skip button!
Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment
Конечно.
surely couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been
А
my
как мне
motto.
попасть
I'd
туда?
do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall
А
have.
как, а куда нажать? Я уже готов.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time.
Перенос вперед во времени, поэтому если мои разглагольства тебя утомляют, жми на кнопку, и ты их промотаешь. Нет, а давай не буду нажимать. Давайте посмотрим на простая колонна настоящая.
Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, we'll pretend that I've just begun an interminable monologue.
Он серьезно сейчас начнет болтать.
The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore, by becoming
У них же не бесконечные диалоги.
inevitably, we all until the end of time.
Они же не написали их на несколько часов.
So, now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until 240.
А тебя послушают, я не буду тебя перематывать. До вчерашнего дня. Мне еще туда-сюда, вперед-назад, сюда до обеда. Блин, он мне не дает сказать ничего. Общайся так, ладно, пока говорит такой и все остальное. Мне этот голос очень сильно напоминает актера озвучки, который в играх участвует от Valve.
We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until 245. Got the logic of elimination working backwards. The deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back.
Сколько я должен это прослушать?
It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story and the choices, or what have you.
Ладно.
Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and
ты одно и то же говорил.
on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd say it was perhaps less of a rumination and more of a treatise. Or maybe a manifesto.
Пошел нахуй.
Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling.
Да,
on,
дай
didn't you?
дальше.
But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a
Да,
thoughtless
да,
despair
погружай
of
свои мысли в
self-absorption,
себя.
it's right at your fingertips to
Все
go,
закончится,
"Oh,
все
it's all over."
просто.
Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie
Cookie
Nine will say
Nine.
of this, and whether they'll
Представляете,
edit the
сколько... Его все...
Steam
Все
review,
люди
or
теперь
at
знают
least
этого
change some of the
никнейм этого
wording,
человека.
perhaps. To be honest, I don't even know if one can change their review in the first place. I guess I should become better educated on exactly how Steam works.
А я не
That
знаю.
would have been the smart thing to check on before I went about this whole exercise of making the skip button. Although I have to imagine that after seeing this exciting new technology at work, surely whoever it is runs Steam
Ладно, пусть
will
пока
instantly
мне
run
дадут
out
возможность
and implement a new
редактировать
feature to
отзывы.
make it possible to
Ишь
edit one's
какой.
review merely because of this very situation.
А.
Yes, I think that's quite likely. Or perhaps
Но вроде
they'll
можно
simply grant
удалить
this
отзыв.
particular user the ability to change their review
Тебе.
so that the feature is not widely
Что?
used. Look, I would even be okay with Steam altering this particular review so that it reads as something more beneficial. Something along the lines of this game
Эта
is
игра
the best
лучшая,
game.
лучшая игра. Вы что, купить хотите? Купите нашу игру только сегодня и
From the
завтра.
ashes of depravity rises the phoenix of... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30
Сколько? Я бы все это время ждать.
Well, there's really only so much I can ramble on to myself about. I know, it's shocking, isn't it? Stanley! Stanley!
Да.
Stanley, please don't push the button.
Сколько?
12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really... Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back. Oh, my goodness. I have someone to talk to again. Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here, not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been.
Актив, да я могу нажать.
You saying nothing. You think that it's exactly the same as always.
Ой. Упс.
Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through.
Угу. Ну... Ну, теперь тишина, наконец-то. Наконец-то тишина. Все, чат? Довольны? Пока. А почему сигнализация? Я же в следующий раз нажму, огонь будет.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said,
Давайте послушаем, он заметил сейчас.
They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability.
Да.
It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack of cohesion in one's assessment of others.
Потому что это
But of
интернет.
course, absolutely anyone can leave a review. So here's what we get. We get these demands that seek everything and are accountable to nothing. We get a world where someone will say, oh, there should be a skip button. You should be able to freeze Stanley in place while the narrator sits there forever and ever. We want all of this in the new Stanley Parable. We demand it. And then, because it was said, because it was spoken, now it simply has to happen. The most immediate desires, every single thing demanded by every person at every moment in time. If someone wants it, then it's a crime not to bring it into being.
Черт, опять промотать. Знаете, тут что-то как-то стало немножечко душно. Душновато стало, чат.
The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end.
Это не конец, это не конец, это не конец, это не конец, это не конец. Это не конец, 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 это не конец. Мне теперь интересно, что если бы мы каждую эту реплику слушали бы до конца? То есть, ну, типа, у них должен же быть какой-то либо предел, чтобы я не нажимал на эту кнопку. Ух, нихуя себе, блядь. А, я же даже не знаю, сколько прошло по итогу. Ночь. Звезды. Свобода! Ну ничего, ничего, мы же еще промотаем. Угу. Но этого мало. Отсюда видно, кстати, деревья. Красота. Пошли нахуй. А? А? Что случилось? Почему тут ничего нету? Ладно. Это в какой-то хоррор превратился теперь? Чё за вечные крики? О. Ох, ёшкин кот. Ох, ёшкин матрёшкин. Еть колотить. Вы серьезно? Красиво, красиво, не могу ничего не сказать. Давайте, что если мы уйдем? Теперь мы свободны. То, что Стэнли так хотел, это чувство свободы. А? It's never end, it's never...
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Ничего не нравится. New content. Ну ладно.
Oh, good. You notice my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Где рассказчик? Скорее всего... Скорее всего, все. С рассказчиком на этом все покончено. Так, мы же повернем налево? Нет, мы здесь так же. Давайте еще раз.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on Stanley
Да, ты размышлял, Stanley
and about
Parable.
how roundly disappointing this ultra-deluxe
Но вообще
version
кнопка
turned
мне
out to be.
понравилась, я бы еще
The
помотал.
original Stanley Parable was a
То есть там можно было
landmark,
перемотать
and any
еще
new
время,
content
это я
for it
просто
should live up
вышел.
to that legacy. So forget this ultra-deluxe nonsense.
Пойти
I say
дальше.
we take it one step even
В
further.
ультра
Which is
делюкс.
why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Что? Stanley Parable 2?
Far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor
Это
additions.
лучше!
All the new territory will cover with a fully fledged sequel, an entirely new experience built from the ground up. Why there are so many possibilities? It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have
Да!
truly been asking
Но мы
for.
этого хотели! Ну ладно. Это нам нужно!
Stanley Parable 2 is just so
Да,
much catchier
круче!
than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think?
В разы!
Ultra
Здесь подсобка?
Deluxe. What does it
Черт.
even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2,
Two.
now
Yeah.
that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented.
Презентация
It
с разными
screams
логами.
progress and innovation and
TCP
long-term
в Google
franchising
этим.
potential.
Но вообще, обычный такой мне бы больше всего понравился. И я бы не парился.
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down
В смысле
what
не
exactly
знаешь?
the Stanley Parable 2
Продолжением?
is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful
Meeting
of
pack,
interesting
scrums and
concepts,
pitch
then
break,
surely
speech
the
number
game will
chat.
sort of naturally
Twice,
spring up around
twos,
them.
two
It'll all
legs.
work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
Дорогие инвесторы, на выставку сюда. Хорошо. New Future. Ну давайте. Нет? Новые материалы. Так я даже не могу посмотреть. Новинки. Какие новинки? Где? Ну ладно. Раз они так хотят. Это типа музея.
Here we are. Go on. Try out some of the new features.
Мерч. Сувениры. Успокаивающее ведро. Это прям как будто другая игра совсем.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and
В
paradoxical.
смысле сама себе
That it
противоречит?
engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who
Безвыходного
played.
отчаяния?
I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever
А где
solution
ведро?
to this fundamental problem with the game.
Ведро украли!
It's the Stanley Parable insurance bucket.
А что с ним
See,
делать?
Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm
Ладно.
and ease will fill your mind.
Сейчас
with
мы
confidence.
расслабимся.
Oh, as long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting
Дай мне
contradictions
его.
of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of
Когнитивного
jarring cognitive
диссонанса.
dissonance while the bucket is in your arms.
Дай мне ведро.
It's a much more convenient solution for you than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try. Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing
Да.
despair, must
Всё,
already be
чат, мы
soothing
начали.
to
Видите,
your
какое
body.
ведро?
And in fact, can I say that I do
Она-
believe
ты идёшь,
the
она так
bucket
тихо
lends you an air of charisma as well. I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person.
Такая чуть-чуть, чуть-чуть.
The benefits of the bucket seem to go on and on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2. Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video
Украшение
game?
для офиса,
That really
бесконечная
should be
дыра.
an award if it isn't already.
Please now screenshots.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet
Опа.
decided on this one. I think that in the new
Вижу
version,
шейды.
the office could
Шейды
use a bit
вижу.
of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on get well someday and happy 12th
Целых 12
birthday. Which
племяшка.
would you go with?
Конечно же, вот это.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's
12
opinion,
лет.
it makes you realize that you knew
Сам
which one
давно
you
определ-
actually really wanted all along. Get well someday it is.
Вообще я хотел сначала тыкнуть, но поправляюсь, ну ладно.
Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Какая большая комната. Знаете, тут так много выборов. Time, dev, opening. Но мы идем сейчас к бесконечной дыре, да?
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole
Ну да.
that you can fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium. You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop
А
that up
где?
to the top, and we can continue onward.
Привет, привет, интересант. Привет,
Now, I don't mean to be a
Жора.
bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to
А я
go
не
back to the
хочу, я
top.
хочу лететь
Do
вниз.
it on the sooner rather than later
Но это же
spectrum.
бесконечная дырка. Ну, дырка же бесконечная. Хай,
Okay,
хани.
Stanley. I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly
А,
exaggerated
в
the infinite
смысле?
nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? Pretty certain it is.
Да, это
It's an
очень глубокая
extremely
дыра.
deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it
Как
infinite?
у вас дела?
Well, that sort of depends on your definition
Ой.
of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in
Ой.
nature. It's more of a... Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley.
Я
And
знал,
now,
знал.
since you're so
Лжец.
clever- Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually
Да,
fascinated by
я люблю
falling.
падать.
What normal person actually wants
Я.
to fall infinitely? I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't
Не,
you put
не.
this on me? Maybe you're the
Нет.
problem. Look,
Апельсинки, приятного аппетита. И за пельмешки тоже. Нет, нет, ты уж начал говорить, что она бесконечная. Так бы и сказал бы, что она, ну, не бесконечная. Нет, я недоволен, продлевай. Ты едешь на дачу? А зачем ты едешь на дачу? Я ж не буду телепортироваться, что, лох? А сам дойду. Дайте лестницу. Дайте лестницу или две. А не буду телепортироваться. Ладно. Да нет проблемы. Это я бесконечно, в такую можно падать до конца времен. Не стоит это проверять. Она стала меньше. А, в день рождения? Хорошо. Да, она стала меньше. Мама, это святое.
Well, I suppose once again there's nothing to do here. If you decide you've had enough of the hole, you can hit the teleport button and come join me up above. Had enough? I'm positively thrilled. Gosh, how could I have guessed?
Но она же это, я хочу падать. А не какой звук.
Wow. Okay. Yes. I'm starting to become extremely certain that the hole is not only not infinite, but that it's growing steadily less.
Она менее бесконечная.
I suspect that I'm starting to hit the point where it's no longer feasible to call the whole
Она конечная теперь. А вообще близко. Это все ты! Ты все подстроил, потому что в дыру падаю.
Let's try something. Let's pop back up to the top, and we'll see if it gets any shorter. Well, there it is. The shame. How is this still appealing to you? I know you're obsessed with holes, but at this depth, I just can't see this scratching the itch. Oh, who am I to judge? You just do whatever it is you're here to do and hit the teleport button when you're ready to move on.
И сына... Кнопка не работает. Да. Да. Ну да, работала только что, а теперь не работает. Давай новую кнопку, может у меня на клавиатуре залагало. Что? Нет! Нет, не бросай меня! Нет! Я пошутил! Ты всегда был со мной! Ты всегда был со мной! Вернись! Блять, он бросил меня, сука. Но ничего. Что? А, у нас даже песочка нет. Так, давайте разделим так. Every pause button is the Roman numeral 2. Что это за звуки? Ладно. Just the two of us. We can make it if you try. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. Building castle in the sky. Дыра! Она она удлиняется! Ура! Да. Дырка. Да. Да. Это будет бесконечная дыра. А в ней буду навечно. Навеки вечные в этой дыре. И ничто меня не остановит. Что с юмором, Стэнли? Чем с ведром стою, смотрите, такой довольный. А можно мне вернуть управление? Опа! Туц, туц, туц. Тутур, тут, туц. Смени реальность? Ох. Сменить себя? Все, мы в новую игру. Собачки! Собачки! Какого Стэнли мы выберем? О, мне нравится. А это случаем не... Это случаем не выглядит как художник, который рисовал всякие вот эти упоротые по мультикам.
Stanley!
А?
Oh good, you're awake. It seems you had sort of dozed off, drifting
Чёрт.
away into dreamland.
Чёрт.
Have that, Stanley.
Я только хотел.
This hole is just so darn
Ах ты
fascinating
тварь.
that I want you to
Я
be
так наслаждался
wide awake for every
собачками.
second of it. You don't want to miss a single moment. So how about if I just pop in from time to time and wake you up to keep you really truly
Я
focused on the
сконцентрирован на двери.
From the looks
Полностью.
of things, you and I will have many, many years here in this hole, and I'm looking forward to all of them. Stay alert, Stanley. I'll be back. Toodle-pip.
О, опять? Мы опять начинаем вниз ехать? Не понял. Я вроде хотел... Ах.
Here we are. Go on. Try out some of the new features.
Ах.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of
Черт.
course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people.
Хочу
So with
большую
that in
кнопку.
mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Кнопка, которая произносит?
Sorry, I should have clarified.
В смысле,
Right
Jim?
now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you role play as Jim to really simulate the full
Так вот Джимом
experience of this
повезло.
feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love
Я не
it.
Джим.
Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind,
Ладно.
forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named
Я
Jim.
Джим.
I want you to imagine yourself living as
Джим.
sleeping and waking as
Я обычный американский
falling in
Джим.
love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the
Hey,
world's
Jim.
possibilities as Jim, and as Jim. Whoa, 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 hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never
Блин.
understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. All right, fine,
Jim.
whatever. It's just a meaningless button that says Jim. Are you happy now? Get out of here. I'm done with this button. Why don't you go humiliate me in front of a different feature that you worked very hard on?
А чем кнопка Джим?
See, if you'd only played along, that would have been your name the button says, but no. Instead, I'm taking the Jim button away.
Нет, нет, не надо, я хотел нажимать на кнопку Джим. Джим, 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 Джим. Мы тут все живы. Джим! 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 Когда есть дверь, я пока не хочу в нее входить. В смысле? Я Джим! Я бы не нажимал на кнопку, если я не был бы Джимом. Она вернулась? Давай скажи, что ты ее вернул. Блять. Почему кнопка не вернулась? Я хотел быть кнопкой Джима. Так. Что тут у нас есть? Тут я в это не хочу пока входить. Это максимально это. Новый офис. Красный хит сезона. Свежий с полужару такой же. Что с тобой? О, бэби! Кнопка! Ну ладно. Прыжковый круг, почти бесконечная дыра. Так. Коллекционные предметы. Ладно, кончилась почти бесконечная дыра. Не контент. Да. Кальмары всегда вкусные. Я пробовал на день рождения кальмары фаршированные. Не то чтобы фаршированные, но фаршированные там грибами, еще чем-то таким. Было вкусно. А как прыгать? Мне же прыжки не дали. Есть хочешь, что не можешь. Ну, кстати, понимаю, типа, полностью. Не понял. Почему это почти бесконечная дыра закрыта? Почему меня ограничивают в моей же свободе? Ну ладно. Халявное новое легкое достижение. Коллекционные предметы. Collect them all. И выход. Так. Решаем, куда мы идем. Мы идем сначала за ачивками. Free achievement. Халявное достижение. Получите свое. Потяните за рычаг. Получите новое достижение. Профит. Получите свое.
Now here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes, you see, you'll come to this lever. Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not.
Да ты меня издеваешься.
I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Тяни! Тяни! Стэнли со всей силой! Приложу всю силу, которую ты знаешь. У меня палец не устанет. Пошло.
А почему у тебя только русская озвучка доступна у донатов? Сексист А.
Спасибо. Сексист. Полноправный сексист. Как ты меня раскрыла? Сексист, я дальше что?
Collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the
Ненавижу
Stanley Parable
коллектаблсы.
2, you'll run around gathering up these
Ненавижу
Stanley
коллектаблы.
figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up.
Ненавижу
You simply
коллектаблы.
collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
Почему Стэнли такой грустный?
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
Как будто мы все посмотрели. А, нет, была же комната, в которую я хотел сходить. А? Вот сюда.
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley?
Ah.
Yes, it would go at the end of the well, we'll figure that out later.
Чемпион мира по... А, тут... Почти халявное достижение. Новый, видите, там новый, на русском. Чемпион мира по... Так. Не понял. Язык... Я найду! Сглаживание управления. Что значит не так? Почему это не работает? Как? Может, я что-то где-то упустил? Ну, по идее, все, да? А где выход? Где выход? Как отсюда выйти? Я же точно все посмотрел. Так, где-то же должна выйти выход. Пока еще украшение, почти бесконечная дыра. И это не все. А вон экзит, вон он экзит. Выход. Ой, во, выход. Спасибо. Это как-то надоело.
All right. Have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
Опа.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new
Ну так,
features?
50 на
Yes, I know
50.
it's
Я
not
бы кое-что
exactly
еще
clear
добавил.
yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent
Да понятно,
video
говно
game.
собачье, может переделывай.
I can feel it in my soul.
Миша, все хуйня.
It's going to work. There's definitely a good game
Не,
here
не,
somewhere.
не.
So,
Ты
let's
прыжки
do this,
добавляешь.
Stanley.
Нельзя
I'll
прыжки
arrange
добавлять.
these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready?
К чему?
Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2.
Давай!
Well, I mean, there's potential
Это
here,
всё?
right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much
Да,
better. I
давай,
feel good.
давай.
Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding,
Что-то не так
Stanley?
явно.
This isn't a coherent
Что-то не
video
так.
game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything.
Давай,
I would
еще
do
раз.
more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic
И...
of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's
Ну-ну-ну-ну-ну-ну.
I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it.
Конечно.
Of course, with respect, with care for the vision and integrity of the original game.
Что мы... Это, ты про Deluxe Ultra Edition?
Is it good? But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and
Что это первая
uncompromising
часть с новыми
conviction,
фичами.
This is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Черт. Блин, кстати, меню мне нравится. Ох, ё, какое. Блин, какое мне очень нравится стилизация меню. Красота. Как так?
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Он нажал, кстати, кнопку «Нажмите, чтобы пропустить». Кстати, это кнопку пропустить. Серьезно.
Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he...
Давайте воспользуемся ей, раз нам предлагают. Так.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Шарики.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Шарики лопать нельзя.
Stanley picked up the bucket.
А почему тут стоит эта штука?
Stanley pressed the bucket upon every little thing in the office. Nothing responded to the bucket's touch, but it did little to discover
тут пропал new content.
the magic of the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest
Да.
and entered the door.
Мне страшно, ведро, только ты меня спасешь.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office. Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket.
Нет!
You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy. It's as clear as day. This broom closet
Нет,
believes
моё!
it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here.
Если любишь,
Supposed to go with the
отпусти.
other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting
Хочешь,
on
чтобы
your
я
shoulders
подсобкой
right now, but you like to be
рассорился?
strong. This is your bucket. This is
Я не
your
буду с тобой
companion and lifelong
ссориться,
friend.
подсобка. Давай честно, мира разойдемся.
We're getting into name calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk? that it
Навис,
has to resort to
что?
this string of petty insults
Она меня
simply in order to get you to
оскорбляет.
hand over the bucket?
Я хотел
Stand.
все решить мирно.
I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than
Здесь
I had
хуже.
imagined.
Что?
And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly
Не-
deep and lasting friends? That your relationship is purely superficial and
Неправда.
convenient? That your life is so banal
Нет.
and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object
Нет.
which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner? Well, I'd never. Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared
Никакие,
together.
только
Go
первые.
through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years.
Год за
Let
годом.
him have it.
Пошел прочь, хоть фу тебе. На.
Okay, I've got you something that I think will help settle this debate once
Что?
and for all. Here we go. There. Now it's settled.
Собственная
No more debate, no
Стэнли!
more discussion. Take our hike, broom closet.
Коля, это
Meandering
моё ведро.
philosophical diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order of things.
Это мое ведро. Видишь, тут написано Property of Stanley.
All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to slap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see, I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket.
Ну
That
да.
way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, ah, it's a bucket.
It's a
There
bucket.
really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker. You know what? I could take the name calling and the dismissal of your kinship with the bucket, but now the broom closet is just full of the
Молчанка.
silent
Она
treatment.
когда-то
And to be
говорила.
honest, I'm sick of the pettiness on display. You can stay here all you like, but I've had it with this impetulant room of
Да за
cleaning
что
supplies.
с ней так?
Easily the most childish such room I've ever been in. I'll see you
Пошла отсюда.
outside, and we can get on with the story about you and your bucket.
Да, поняла, подсобка. Мы уйдем. А потом вернемся, чтобы тебе дать поебало. Хе-хе-хе. Ладно, ладно, идем, идем.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Так и быть, так и быть. Я могу наполнить?
You found one of them. One of the miniature
Что?
Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Ладно. Morning in the evening. Money for breakfast. Money crisp. Новая штучка. А, вот, кстати.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours,
Я не
the bucket's
помню.
warmth and guiding light
Кто помнит
pierced
номер,
the dark
код?
clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable.
А кнопку пропустить, я так и... А,
At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk.
какой
Nor
пароль?
in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the pin number for the
Два.
keypad was 28.
А, 8, 4, 5. 2, 8, 4, 5.
Code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes,
2,
this is
8,
certainly the most
4,
logical
5.
explanation. Another miniature Stanley.
Еще!
figurine.
Ура!
You know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What
Да.
about mini
О,
Stan?
идеально,
Stanley
мини-стен.
figs?
Нет.
What about Stanlerines? Yes, I think
Нет,
that.
мини-стен.
Another Stanlerine under your belt.
Я хочу. Я хотел другое.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything
Да.
will be fine.
Так всегда было?
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
Смерть!
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
Потому что это дыра. А я дырки обожаю. А такое было в прошлый раз? А такое было? Было в первой части такое?
To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket. But what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
Пока, чат.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws.
Что?
In a single visceral instant,
Что?
the bucket's life came to an end, as it was crushed violently to death.
Женщина! Женщина!
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
Женщина. Ведро. Приглашаем вас на большую выставку. Вы подошли к порогу настоящего знания. Как и само ведро, человеческий разум зачастую всего лишь пустой сосуд. Но с помощью таких средств, как эта выставка, разум наполняется смыслом и познанием. Знание о ведре и его истории — единственная непреложная истина в переменчивом мире. Возьмите ли вы с собой внешний мир то, что узнаете здесь? Откроете ли разум тому, что может показаться сложным или даже невыносимым? Поменяете ли свою жизнь и жизнь своих близких после этой выставки? Или отвернетесь и будете жить, как прежде, в невежестве и темноте?
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket
Сколько
like this
ведер?
and to claim it for his own?
20.
Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
25 ведер. Фото 25 ведер. Большего количества не удавалось снять никому. Фотограф на несколько недель буквально потерял дар речи. Настолько велика была его радость от снимка с таким количеством ведер. Так тут не 25, даже считать не буду, потому что тут раз, два, три, четыре, пять, шесть, семь. Ну, типа тут уже десяток набрался, так что все. Ведро с двумя ручками. Ведро представлено с двумя ручками сразу. В реальной жизни такой дизайн ни разу не использовался. Его признали слишком опасным и безрассудно новаторским. Каждый год в несколько странах казнят тех, кто пытается его реализовать. Ладно. Адское ведро. Репродукция адского ведра, которая так ценилась в средние века, что целые народы шли за него на войну. Люди гибли сотнями тысяч, но один факт остался непреложным. Никого нет власти над ведром. Черт, я не могу забрать ведро. Ведро антистресс. Комментарии отсутствуют. Ворник негатив. Пофиг. Пещерный рисунок. Мы знаем, что ветры появились раньше людей, но не знаем, насколько раньше. Рисунок изображает древнего человека, который научился пользоваться ведром. По всей вероятности, ветру к этому времени уже несколько тысяч лет. Обратите внимание... Собак не уважаем. Обратите внимание, как ведро позволяет себе использовать признаков человечества достойного этого. Ука-бука. А я? А как же Стэнли? Висящее ведро. Экспонат символизирует неизбежную связь ведра и человечества. Мы можем думать, что отлично понимаем ведро, но всегда найдется что-то, чего мы еще не осознали. И это всегда к лучшему.
There is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
Ладно.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over
А
him.
теперь тут не закрыто, кстати. Я вроде еще ни разу не ходил на правую дверь. Ой, мне почему-то не прогружалось. Да, женщина-рассказчик. Черт, я не знаю, мне почему-то чат не прогружался, сейчас прогрузился. Ну как, я обновил. По идее, тут можно будет вернуться типа на основную ветку. Ведро. Ведро ошибается. Там есть еще.
No, said the bucket. Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Good, said the bucket. Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need.
But Stanley feared that any path he walked
Я упал.
would lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend.
Вроде нельзя
So
было
he threw
падать.
himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
Что? Это меньше, что я ожидал.
A soft wind blew outside and started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather. The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind.
А куда мы идем дальше?
Stanley took the door on his left.
Можно было падать, да?
And so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Я думал, что нельзя было раньше падать. Тоже типа умирали? Что ли, в первой части?
Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley.
Блин, мы
We've
тебя
come together
Стэнли.
here because we care about you very much. It's
Тут
this
всё.
bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel
Тут даже
content.
линия.
We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. I
Нет.
know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it. Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh,
Никуда.
I played some silly music as well.
Что? Та-та-та-та-та-та-та.
Now
This is what the Stanley Parable is
А
all about.
музыка где?
Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Да.
It's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up.
Ахахаха.
Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the
Нет.
Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition
Нет.
to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game,
Нет.
but it's such a well-fleshed-out character
Как
with so
отсюда
much
уйти?
personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree?
Нет.
Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does?
Да.
Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you.
Я не буду давать там ведро.
Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
Нет. Я
Now listen to me.
никогда.
It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows.
И
That is its
что, ты
singular
своих друзей тоже
personality
уничтожаешь,
trait.
которые ничего
So
не
I can
умеют?
hear you saying,
Мы
"How does a
дружим не из-за
character
того,
with
что
only
кто-то
one
что-то умеет, а
personality
что-то
trait
нет.
deserve to join the pantheon of beloved Stanley Parable characters?" Well, you see, if you were to
Здесь
really
синяя-красная
explore the
дверь.
Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to
А
crush
потому что мы
buckets
с
is
ведром, мы
so
в этом
densely
уже, в
loaded with
делюксе
complexity
сейчас.
and nuance that it's really
Мы
like
сейчас типа в
10
2.0
personality
версии,
traits.
поэтому тут
What other
отличается.
object in this game can you even say that about? The broom closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now.
Нет!
Hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket.
Я
Quickly now,
никогда
the fans are waiting.
не
Do it, the
предам
fans, Stanley. Give
ведра.
the fans what they want. Hurry and...
Почему летает уничтожитель ветра?
Bucket Destroyer, my prized creation.
Попасть.
You had so much potential.
У тебя был такой
We were going to do
потенциал.
such marvelous
Мы
things with
столько
you,
всего с тобой
still
сделали.
writing stories about you, all
А
of you
теперь все
squandered
псу
now.
под хвост.
Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were
Ты был прекрасен.
magnificent.
Ну и кринжа ты навалил. Welcome, Стэнли, в рай. Вославь, вославь, вославь. Так, что тут делать?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind.
А нас точно ведро?
Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
Okay, I'm going back to the name of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanlerines and Figlies. What do you think, Stanley? What
Me
name better
Stan.
encapsulates the
Aye.
intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Где это я? Что это?
Okay, this is day number 295. Tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore.
Все в тумане.
The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it.
Они все наговаривают.
Still haven't
Все
figured out
наговаривают
why
на
I've
бедное
seen
ведро.
the world
Во второй
so
час стрим будет. Ну да, мы
differently
скоро
when this
заканчивать
bucket
будем.
is in my
Кстати.
arms. Why everything
Why
feels so. What do I do with
Что
this
делать с
treasure?
этим сокровищем?
I can monetize it.
Да! В аренду.
It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will
Сейчас,
pay
ведро.
for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets
Что?
out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
Кто? Что за триллер какой-то опять начался? Какой гамбарата? Ну ладно.
Even now, Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps, and a Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go
Нет,
back
нет.
to the meeting
Куда,
room.
говорит, ведро? Куда идти?
No,
Said the bucket.
Куда
don't
идти,
go to the
ведро?
meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yeah. Good,
Еще
said the
там
bucket.
есть.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly
Игра
convinced
снова
that the
стала
bucket
хоррором,
had
да.
spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
In here,
Said the bucket.
go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Now pick up the phone.
Ладно. Алло. Алло.
This
Hello.
is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly,
Наша
he began to
квартира.
believe the bucket could speak to him.
Привет, Стэнли. Это я, Ведро. Нажми N, чтобы взять меня на работу.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders.
Блин, видите, они сделали
Whatever Stanley is hearing
прозрачным,
the bucket say to him is
чтобы я не
just in
смог
his head.
подняться. Черт. Нажми C, чтобы взять меня домой.
Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over
простая
an
такая
inanimate
квартира,
metal
да.
object. I want to say something to him, but I don't know how I can convince him. I don't know if he'll listen to me. Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me. It's just a bucket. It can't think, it can't talk. All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid
Это
from one
ведро,
location
у него
to a
есть
different
чувства.
location. That's
У
it.
него есть
It
эмоции и
doesn't do
мысли.
anything else.
Да.
You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This stupid hunk of metal.
Да.
It's sad, but I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From
Такое
now
ведро.
on, he's just going to cling to
Ведро.
this bucket, this cold,
Ведро.
empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it.
Да. Верю.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a little more, what am I trying to say? Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another.
Да. Я согласен.
Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I
Сам
feel so
ты
need to
ведро.
point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
Сам.
Oh no, I'm having feelings for the bucket. Oh no. What's going on? Why do I want to
да.
be with the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks.
Да.
What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing.
Да.
Yes, the bucket could tell me what
Ведро.
to do in this troublesome situation. Stanley, give me the bucket. Give
Нет.
it to me. Give me the
Нет.
bucket, Stanley.
Нет.
I need it. Give it to me now. Give it, or I'll...
Да. Конечно. Я вернусь.
Even now, Stanley's office was a distant memory. What did it look like? There was a computer, perhaps. The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket, off on another thrilling adventure together. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
Не плевать.
Stanley had felt the bucket calling to
Ведро.
him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place
А
to
что если мы
be.
туда же
And
вернемся?
here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. A cargo lift. Good, said the bucket. Now ride the lift all the way to the top.
А что если мы туда
There's
же
something up
вернемся?
there I
Давайте
need you
туда
to
же
do.
вернемся.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Да. Только я и ведро, а вы что думали?
In here.
Said the bucket.
Go into this dark room over here.
Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Да.
Now pick up the phone.
И что, все тоже повторится?
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him. The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship.
Мы же только что
It doesn't
делали,
literally
нет?
talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head. Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over
Давайте
inanimate
еще
metal
раз
objects?
пройдем.
I want to say something to him, but I
Ну,
don't
что-то
know how I can
изменится?
convince him. I don't know
Но я
if he
сомневаюсь,
will
что-то
listen to me.
изменится. Можно было бы выдернуть из розетки телефон.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me. It's just a bucket. It can't
Может,
think,
сейчас я смогу
it can't
остановиться
talk.
все равно.
All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer
Давайте я не
liquid
буду
from one
нажимать
location
это.
to a different location. That's it. It doesn't do anything else.
Вот она заставляет не слушать, а если я не буду ее слушаться, а послушаю этого. Теперь я такой, ага, пошла нахуй. Ну? Не пошла в пень, ладно.
You see, he's
Я
not
слушал
listening.
тебя, ты
He's
меня не
still
хотел
taking orders
слушать.
from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This stupid hunk of metal. It's sad. I suppose he doesn't need me
Да.
anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket.
Я нажимаю
this
на все
cold,
клавиши, чтобы
empty
проскипать.
bucket,
Где?
this
Где
sort of
клавиша скипа,
shiny-
которая так обещана всем?
Well, I'll give it this. The bucket
Я и
does have a
ждал.
nice shine to it.
А ее нету.
Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket.
Я на все клавиши
It's just a
нажимаю.
little more,
Нет.
what am I trying to say? Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another. Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room.
Так,
It's a
на
bucket.
все
It's
клавиши
literally just a
нажимаем.
bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so
Нет.
much more than just a regular bucket?
Да.
Oh no, I'm having feelings.
Если я не буду брать, то что будет?
No, 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 no.
No,
What's
no, no,
going
no,
on?
no, no,
Why
no,
do I
no,
want
no,
to
no.
be with the
Oh,
bucket?
no, 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 no,
Hear
no,
what
no,
the
no.
bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I
Вы
don't
пустите
understand.
меня!
Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing. Yes.
Так забери
The
его.
bucket could tell me what to do in this troublesome situation. Stanley, give me the bucket. Give
Да.
it to me. Give me the bucket,
Yeah.
Stanley. I need it. Give it to me now. Give it, or I'll.
Возвращайся на работу, Стэнли. Ладно, ничего из этого не поменялось. Давайте тогда все на сегодня. Типа, вообще много из
All of
Делюкса
his coworkers
посмотрели.
were gone.
Блин, как же мне нравится. Как же мне нравится это меню. Уа. Так. Давайте я вас верну. Что ж. Вот и возвращение блудного сына. Если можно так сказать. Поэтому давайте. Всем большое, что пришли. Всем большое спасибо, что пришли. Даже не сказал, что большое. Так что давайте. Всем большое спасибо. Всем пока-пока. Давайте встретимся уже завтра. В это же время вроде бы либо в 4, либо в 6. Но вроде бы в это же время. Так что не унывайте, ждите. Пока-пока.